and welcome to my new channel, Reviews by Beth, where I'm going to be giving you my opinions on all things books. And I thought I'd kick off the YouTube channel with one of my favourite books that I've ever read, which is The Nightingale by Kristen Hannah, which is a perfect book in my opinion. It has got everything you could possibly want and some incredible characters, some wonderful storylines, some character arcs, some plot twists that you don't see coming, and it is just a great all-rounded book. Now, if you don't know what this is about, it's basically about World War II, and it's set in France during the German occupation of France and how the Germans and the Nazis ruled over that with an iron fist, basically. And it focuses on two sisters, so it's quite different as opposed to other war books, which are often primarily focused on men and their stories and their experiences, which is so important that we tell those stories and raise awareness and talk about how war can affect so many men in a terrible way and how it did and how many lives were lost. However, this story is actually taking the focus off of that and looking at how people experienced war back home, so how the women actually endured the war. So it's kind of a gap in the stories that we get told about war. So this is about Vianne and Isabelle Mauriac, some fictional characters in World War II in a town near Paris. And it's really interesting because we get these two sisters who go on two completely different roads and paths and who are very different characters but both do incredible things during the war. So we get Vianne, who is the typical older sister, who is a bit more put together, a bit more focused, doesn't want to leave home, is really affected by all of this. She doesn't see her husband, so her husband is sent away to war, so she has to take care of her child and later someone else's child, but I won't try and spoil that too much. And it talks about the issues of trying to keep a family together in the midst of war, and then she goes on to do some interesting things in her town to help the war effort. And then we have the younger, more rebellious sister Isabelle, who is completely against war. She is wanting to fight with the men, but obviously she can't, but she ends up doing quite a few exciting things and actually gets the nickname of the Nightingale, and that is what the story is about. It's about Isabelle and about Vianne and the women. So Isabelle actually becomes a kind of spy, kind of helping enemy lines, and she really helps in the war effort by helping allies get back into territories that are neutral, because Paris and France at that point were completely not neutral and were overtaken by Germany, so it's actually a very dangerous place to be. Now, I've always been someone who's been so interested in history. I did a history A-level and I went on to do an English degree, so this really tickled all my fancies basically. I really enjoyed this book, and it is so beautifully written, but it's also so extremely harrowing at the exact same time. We get moments of light, but a lot of moments of darkness, especially when it gets to the end of the book. I would say with this book it's a little bit hard to get into to begin with. You have to stick with it. I personally didn't like the character Isabelle at the start of the novel and then absolutely loved her by the end. So you do have to stick with the characters for the first, I'd say maybe 50 to 80 pages of the novel, and then you are hooked. I've recommended this book to literally everybody I know, and I even gave it to my grandma, and we both cried at the end. So it is a bit of a sad ending, but in a good way, if that makes any sense. I don't want to spoil too much if you want to pick up this book, but if I was to give a rating of this book, it would definitely be a 5 out of 5 stars. I cannot recommend this enough. If you really want to have a war novel that's maybe not primarily focused on the war aspect of war with all the fighting, and just have a bit more of an insight of what goes on behind the scenes and how the women were affected. There's actually a beautiful quote at the start, and it says, "In love we find out who we want to be, in war we find out who we are." And I just think that is so beautiful and so harrowing and describes this book entirely. So if that hasn't convinced you to pick up this book, I don't know what will. But If you have enjoyed this video, can you please like, comment and subscribe? And if you'd love to support the channel, we have a Patreon linked in the description below, and any support would be greatly appreciated. So thank you very much, and I will see you next time. Bye!